I've just gone through hours of editing, and I just scrapped it all because ultimately I'm just rambling incoherently. I mean, I get it, but I don't think that I'm able to articulate it quite efficiently enough. The stories of the Bible are metaphors. They're lessons to be learned. God didn't set up Adam and Eve for the fall because they were bad. These are stories that date back before Judaism, possibly even farther, based on the way they're structured. And it's about humans becoming conscious and self-aware. That's that metaphor, that they are all of a sudden aware that they're not just regular animals anymore, right? They start thinking about, oh, that I have a cause. There's a cause and effect in what I do, and I caused that, and that gave me that outcome. Maybe I shouldn't do that again. Next time I'm going to do this, right? So these things evolve over many, many hundreds and thousands of years. It's not just one day that God gives a command. The God concept is merely something that is bigger than all of us humans, and that is the relationship that we have with each other in whatever form that is. When Nietzsche said that God was dead and we killed him and we had the blood on our hands, he wasn't happy about this, right? You'd think that philosophers, maybe they're secular, and it didn't really matter whether they were secular or not. Nietzsche knew that we would be in trouble as a society if we didn't have something to believe in. And I think we've seen that over and over again throughout history. So it's time that we start heeding some of the warnings that the people that came before us have taught us. The first 3 stories in the Bible are they're so important. They're foundational, right? It's how we've come into consciousness, what those things mean to us, figuring out that we're naked just is a vulnerability. That's all that is. And when you're vulnerable, then you're not going to tempt fate so much, right? You're not going to you're going to realize that you have limits. And then in now acknowledging that you're human and you've got some kind of consciousness and self-consciousness, you need to prepare, right? You're not just some animal in a field anymore. Now you're a human, and you've got duties. That's why naming the animals is naming things. It makes them real. Even in therapy today, they have you name what's going on. You have to name your issue. You're angry or whatever. It makes it real. It's the same concept. You're not going to tempt fate so much. It's kind of like when you're surfing. You hear surfers talk about, respecting the wave, things that are bigger than you. Mm-hmm. The relationship between people. It's not that those two people are less important, but how you foster that relationship is really important. Marriage is a really good example of that, right? The 2 people are, of course, in it, but it is the marriage itself, because these 2 are flawed. They're messed up. They always have been, always will be, right? But it's 2 people that say, okay, we can tolerate each other, but we're staying. If you commit with me, if you get married with me, then you commit to sticking around, right? That's the thing that's supposed to be worshipped, is that bond between all of us. That's supposed to be divine. Cain and Abel talks about sacrifice and our decisions. It's kind of a reaction to what we learn as Adam and Eve. And that even though he gets away with killing his brother, he's not really punished for it. The rest of the story goes on to say that, look, this man is not punished for what he did, and so it eats away at him, right? And so if you insult somebody from his family, you'll get it 7 times over, and then again, if it happens again 7 times 70, it just means that we throw our generational dysfunction down through the ages if we don't fix them, if we don't correct them, if we don't handle them properly. If somebody does something wrong, we need to correct it, not just by punishing them, but making sure that it never happens again. Because a man who carries a burden like that, a person, a human that carries a burden like that, is not going to operate in a straight line anymore, because it's going to erode their confidence, their self-image, all of those things. Certainly the flood tells you that if you don't keep your life in order, if you don't take care of what you're supposed to, keeping the foundation of the house, make sure that it's stable, make sure that you have enough food, make sure that you take care of, crops or whatever it is that you need to have to be prepared. That if you don't do that, a storm will come, and metaphorical storm or a real one, right? Like Louisiana saw a real storm. They were warned that their levees were not sufficient. Holland has the same type of situation. They also live underneath or below the sea level, yet they've built their levees. They say that they can withstand storms. Maybe one every 10,000 years will come by and will be able to destroy their levees. But Louisiana didn't listen. They cut corners and they misappropriated funds, and they didn't heed the warning, and that's what they got. And it wasn't because they're filthy heathens or that they were displeasing God. They just broke the rule that was handed down throughout the ages. Look, they said, hey, we've seen it before. We've seen people who did not pay attention to what happened before them. And there that goes. Now your ship's gone, and you were warned. And that also speaks to our responsibility. We'll blame a lot of things on a lot of different people, but if you sit down and look at most problems, they were avoidable by that particular person who's saying, it's not my fault. Yeah, it was your fault. This was your responsibility. You chose not to be responsible for it. That's your choice. You don't want to be responsible for it, that's fine. But that still doesn't negate the fact that it was your responsibility, and this is what you get. Look, every time somebody dies, the closer we are to that person, the more of an impact we feel. And that universally, people of sound mind feel grief when somebody dies. That's objective. We know that people are born. That's objective. We all know it. We just, because it happens. We know this. People die. It's objective. We know this. And everything in between has developed over millions of years. So it's not about who did what. It's not about whether Christians are more moral than atheists. It's about our humans doing what's necessary to make every generation better as we go on. There's so much information out there. There's so much history. There's so many writings from all walks of life that warn us of what is good and what is bad, and what is helpful and what is hindering. And if we were smart, we would be taking the good and bringing it forward with us and leaving the bad and advising those who are with us. Hey, remember we did this in the past. It didn't turn out well. We're not doing that again. But this did work. And hey, by the way, those guys over there, they got something that works too. I think we can incorporate it into what we're doing. Humans have been battling between the good and the bad that is within each and every person since the very beginning. That is the whole metaphor of God and the devil. It's that is good and that is bad.